All right. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Good morning, everybody. It is a wonderful morning for a flight, and I do believe we are going to have a little bit of fun today. So, this morning I will be continuing my coast to coast journey for TPC Charters with the Pilot Club. I'm getting things set up. As you can see, I've already got some stuff preloaded in the sim. Today we will be flying from Abeline Regional in Abilene, Texas, to Amarillo. To Amarillo. But first of all, let's go ahead and take a peek into on air so we can start getting set up for our flight. All right, bring this over here. I'll go click into our aircraft. I've already went ahead and scouted a suitable job. We're going to go ahead and start prepping the Beechcraft Bonanza A36TC turbocharged. That is the aircraft I've been using for coast to coast flights, and we're most of the way there. Made it at least halfway across the country. So we're going to be taking 95 pounds of cargo with us today. We're going to be taking 3 passengers. Our current fuel. Okay, on air shows a direct distance of 196 nautical miles. You always have to plan for a little bit more because of, maneuvering around airspace and just moving around. So, but you look here, we have an estimated current range of 506 nautical miles, keeping a 30-minute reserve as required. I think we should be good with the fuel we have on board, although we will need to start considering when and where to buy our next fuel. So let's just go ahead and check out the FBOs. 100 low lead is available at $5.63 a gallon, with more than plenty of gallons available. I think that's an acceptable price. It's not an astronomically expensive amount, so we don't have to worry about tankering any fuel with us to get ahead of price increases. We'll be able to buy plenty of fuel at a reasonable price at our next destination, so we're good there. Moving ahead, let's go ahead. Just go ahead and catch some information on this flight. One thing I've already filled out our origin. This is my mission log. I like to keep this to keep track of profit, loss, margins for any flight I fly for TPC Charters. It's just useful information that I enjoy compiling, and it can be useful to the managers if they want to be sure that, and for education purposes, showing other pilots how to choose excellent jobs. So as you can see, we've already pre-filled. We've got Abeline is our origin, KABI. Destination is Amarillo, KAMA. The direct distance, according to On Air, of 196 nautical miles. The distance flown, we won't know until we've actually flown it. Passengers for this flight thus far, we know we'll be having 3 first-class passengers. So 003 passenger configuration. And if you remember, let's move this out of the way, I said we had 95 pounds of cargo on board. So we'll fill that out as well, 95 pounds. Block fuel is going to be listed in pounds, 418.98 pounds of fuel, 418.98 pounds of fuel, giving us a gross weight of 3,363 pounds. Engine on time, can't fill this out yet. Price per gallon. I remember that the last time we purchased gas, Let's cross-reference that. My apologies. I shouldn't have been there. Alright, the last time we purchased gas, we paid $4.45 a gallon, so we're going to reuse that because we're still burning the same tank. Our starting fuel in terms of gallons is 69.83 gallons of fuel. 69.83. And getting ahead of all this just makes life easier. Cruise profile, we're going to plan for 25-25 rich, but plans can change in flight, so we'll keep an open mind. We'll leave that blank for now. Weather observations. Let's go ahead and check the weather. So let's switch on over here and let's get a weather report. All right, starting off, here's our general route we're going to be planning for. Let's cover the route first, might as well. We're going to plan to take off from Abeline Regional, and we want to get clear of the Charlie before we start doing anything crazy, because we got to be careful of the Air Force Base, any other traffic around the Charlie. We need to, we're going to be flying on VATSIM, so we need to do our best to follow the rules. So I'm going to head south to the Tuscola VOR just to get us out of the Charlie, and then keeping VFR. We're going to be flying VFR today, I believe, if the conditions allow. Skirt across, make our way to Sweetwater, just as a reference point. Turn north from Sweetwater. I'm going to overfly Guthrie and overfly Dan Richards Municipal Airport. I'm going to turn at the Childress VOR, and we're going to follow the Victor 114, but the GTN 750 that I'm using cannot follow Airways directly, so we're going to manually follow it from the Childress VOR all the way into Amarillo, and then once we get in position correctly, we'll set ourselves up for whatever approach we use, whether that's a visual approach or whether that's the RNAV. So let's go ahead and check the weather. Abeline, I'll do a quick refresh. It's been a little while. There we go. All right, so according to metartaf.com, website I love to use, current VFR conditions, winds are 5 knots, 210 for 5, visibility 10 miles. There are no clouds, clear skies. Altimeter 3963. Looks like a very pleasant day. Very pleasant day in Abeline. So let's check our destination now. Amarillo. Go ahead and refresh. There we go. Refresh. Still VFR. 12 knot winds. 200 for 12. Those can be, 12 knot winds. But if you look, it lines up pretty well with runway 22. So that's the runway we're going to plan for. 10-mile visibility and clear skies, no clouds. Altimeter 2942. So excellent day for some VFR flying in Texas. All right, so let's go ahead and switch back. Let's finish our planning. So weather observations, we're going to go ahead and put these, but if they change, we'll change it later. Weather observations are clear skies, full VFR conditions. All right, mission payouts, pilots cut, fuel costs, all that stuff comes after the flight. So there's what we have so far. Minimize this. Do a quick once over, make sure we've got everything selected. Be sure we're loading both cargo and passengers. Yes. Make sure we have requisite fuel on board to make our flight. Yes. 0 fuel weight. Be sure we're below our maximum gross weight. We are. Make sure we have our destination selected. We'll go ahead and validate fuel and payload. That didn't take long. There it was, almost immediate. Flight offset, at the moment, it is just after 8 a.m. Central Time, which is local time for Texas. So I'm pretty sure the sun's going to be coming up quite shortly if it hasn't already. So I think a early morning flight would be beautiful. So let's just leave that at a 0-hour flight offset and fly in real time. So then click start flight. Alright, a few things here. Tracking conditions, the date's correct, the fuel's correct, payload's correct. It's going to auto set those for us. Model, I had the Grand Caravan selected on my hangar screen before I loaded in. When I load in, it'll correct itself to the Bonanza. Sim settings, no slew, unlimited fuel, all the sim settings are correct. Location not detected because we haven't actually loaded in yet. So let's just go ahead and switch out, minimize that. And let's get this the rest of the way set up. Let's check. Always like to fly with the November 62 Golf Mike custom registration. It shows my registration, but uses that real world paint job. I really do like it. It's beautiful. Weight and balance will be auto adjusted by on air, so we don't need to touch that. Failures, I like, keep failures disabled. Alright, here we go. Tail number is November 9185 Tango, which is the registration number of my black square, my Bonanza in on air. So that is good to go. All things set. And we will go ahead, check flight conditions. I'm going to click live weather and live time. And here we go. Now we're loading. My overlay counted that as a landing for some reason. That's kind of funny. 0 feet per minute. That's a butter landing right there. There we go. My overlay's updated now. Departing Abeline, arriving in Amarillo. Distance go estimated 197 nautical miles. Registration November 9185 Tango. Aircraft Bonanza. Alright. Oh no. For some reason it auto put us on the runway. That is no good. We can't do that for on air. We have to start cold and dark on the ramp for on air to give us credit. So, no problem there. Sorry about that. We will just back out to the main menu and try it again. Alright, world map. There we go, parking 26. All our other settings should still be correct, so let's just go ahead and try to load that again. There we go, this looks a little better. Oh, I forgot to double check all my switches. Everything's trying to come on. Alright, my physical controls were configured incorrectly. That was on me. Let me check my controls to be sure, because I had a different aircraft loaded. I want to be sure. Single engine complex, alpha flight controls profile. Okay, we are good. Alright. We are ready to start our checklist. So before engine start checklist, start working our way through. Pre-flight inspection, we're going to call it complete. Seats and seat belts are secure. Cabin doors are latched. I just set the parking brake. Emergency gear handle stowed. Avionics breakers. They're all in. Flaps. Flaps are up. Oxygen pressure right here is in the green. Avionics off now. We made that mistake. They were on a while ago, but we made sure they're off. Throttle is closed. Let's move that out of our way so you can see what we're doing a little better. Throttle is closed. Propeller goes to full RPM. Mixture goes to full rich. Cowl flaps, they are open. Aileron trim stays centered. Alternate air is off. Firewall valve is open. Landing gear is down. Sub-panel switches, they are all off. Load meter is set to primary. Main breakers are all pushed in. Alternate static air set to normal. Yes. Carbon monoxide test. Hard to see the light lighting up because the tooltip pops up over it. It's kind of fun. Alright, fuel selector. There we go. Our fuel selector set to the left, which should be our fullest tank. Beacon light comes on. Battery master comes on. Bus volts should be at 23 volts minimum, and they are. Annunciators, let's go ahead and back up so we can see them. Annunciators, everything is lit up, looking good. Primary alternator comes on. Standby alternator comes on. Main tank, main fuel quantities. Alright, responding, about half a tank in each tank. Tip tank quantities for reserves, about a half a tank of tip tanks. Good so far. Auxiliary fuel pump, switch it on to low, confirm that we can hear it. It's good, and then turn it back off. Standby gyro pump comes on. Make sure the standby gyro is illuminated, which it is. Instrument air, make sure it's in the green, which it is. Standby gyro pump comes back off. Alright, before start, checklist complete. Next we're going to attempt a cold engine start. Okay. So for this cold engine start, we're going to go mixtures full rich, propellers full RPM, throttle all the way open. Now, when you prime the fuel pump, you want to run the fuel pump for 2 to 3 seconds, no more, or you could risk flooding the engine, and then we'd have to do a flooded engine start. So we'll go ahead and turn it on, give it about a 3 count, and then turn it back off. 1, 2, 3, turn it back off. That should be good. Alright. We had to confirm while the fuel was flowing that the fuel flow was greater than 3. I noticed it went up, I just forgot to mention it. Sorry about that. Auxiliary fuel pump's back off. Alright, so we close the throttle and open it back up about a ½ inch, give or take. And we engage the starter. Back up so I can see the propeller. Alrighty. Engage the starter. And okay, it did not want to start. We're going to try one more time. If it doesn't start this time, we'll switch to a flooded engine start. One more. Alright, so it doesn't want to start. That means we probably flooded the engine, or for whatever reason it needs an engine start. So mixture goes lean. Don't want to go cut off, you want to have it open just a little bit, but mixture lean. Propeller high RPM. all the way at the top. Throttle open for 1/2 inch. Engage the starter, and then you're going to walk the throttle forward until you hear the engine start. Then you idle the throttle and advance the mixture lever all the way to full rich. And that is a flooded engine start, which is this is the black square Bonanza and the black square aircraft, the black square analog aircraft. Not only do they change the avionics to analog, they model the engines so well. So you have to handle the engines correctly, or you can risk fouling the spark plugs. You can risk causing an engine failure. You can damage the engines, causing all sorts of problems. And this is one of them. You can flood the engine when you try to start it if you're not careful. Or if the conditions are just wrong, just right or just wrong. All right, so here we go. I'm going to engage the starter, walk the throttle forward. All right, it's not working, so we're going to disengage the throttle. Could be. Let's try to prime it again, because we might not have primed correctly. Okay. We've primed the engine. This is one of the things you gotta know how to troubleshoot it, because otherwise you'll have problems getting the engine started. Let's try the hot start one more time. So, mixture full rich, full RPM. Engage this. Throttle is open to 1/2 inch. Engage the starter. There it is. Oh, right. It just wasn't fully primed. Here, I thought it was flooded. It was the opposite problem. There wasn't enough fuel. Alright, now our engine's purring like a kitten. So we'll start our after start checklist. Throttle should be about 1,000 RPM. So let's adjust the throttle until we hit 1,000 RPM. Check. Oil pressure is in the green. Temperature is rising as it should. Starter annunciator is extinguished. Low voltage annunciator is extinguished. Alternator load should be below 25 amps within 2 minutes. It is. Bus volt should be 28 volts. It is correct. Engine instruments, check them. Alright, manifold pressure is not important right now. It's not. Manifold pressure is good. RPMs between 1,000 and 1,200. We can actually pull that back just ever so slightly. Good. Fuel flow, nominal. Temperatures still coming up, but good. Oil pressure's in the green. Oil temperature's in the green. Good. Lights as required. We're going to go ahead and kick on those nav lights because we plan on moving here shortly. Weather radar should be in off or standby mode. Alright, it's currently on, so let's go ahead and turn that to test and standby. That's where it should be. Weather avionics. Okay, avionics then come on. Here we go. Alright, cabin and heat, air and heat as desired. It's 59 degrees Fahrenheit currently. That is fairly pleasant. We'll go ahead and leave it as is. Air conditioning as desired. Mixture, lean for taxi. I'm going to go ahead and pull the mixture lever back. Not so much that the engine cuts out, but enough that it's not running full rich constantly on the ground. We'll remember to push that full rich again before takeoff. Parking brake wants us to test the brakes by releasing the parking brake and then using the wheel brakes to confirm that the brakes are working. We'll do that real quick. Release the parking brake, we start drifting forward, and apply wheel brakes. Okay, set the parking brake back, and we're good. Brakes check, and after start checklist complete. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop with the checklist for the moment and start programming our FMS. Let's go back. There we go. Get our icons back. Let's get our flight plan running. I'm going to go ahead and bring up Navigraph so we can see what we need. Alright, so we got our origin of Abeline set. We're going to program our destination of Amarillo. Good. Oh no, I just remembered something that we forgot to do. I'm gonna have to start all over. But not too big of a problem. We just need to... We forgot, or I forgot, to start tracking in on air. I'm glad I remembered this before we started taxiing and taking off and everything, because that would have been horrible. So, easy fix. All we have to do is just go ahead and reverse some of these. Let's go ahead and turn our avionics back off. And let's cut our mixture back to cutoff. Kill our engines, because the engine can't be running when you start on air. It doesn't like... You have to start cold and dark. Or at least cold. Engine has to be off. Alright, so engine is off. Switch back to on air. Start tracking. Notice the shift. It's because it loaded our weight and balance. Alright, now we are tracking in on air. Minimize that, get us out of our way. We can start engine again and pick up where we left off. So, full rich. And engage the starter. May need the hot start, because we just started the engine. Hot start. Make sure to cut off propeller high RPM. Auxiliary fuel pump on high for 10 to 12 seconds. Off. Mixture goes full rich. Throttle full open. Auxiliary fuel pump high for 2 to 3 seconds. Alright. Fuel pump off, throttle. Open about a ½ inch and engage the starter. There it is. Just like that. Had to purge the fuel from the system so it wouldn't be flooded. Alright. Now that that embarrassment is aside, go ahead and check our engine instruments just to be safe. Everything, oil pressure, oil temperature, everything looks good. So avionics comes back on. Oh look, it saved our progress. Alright. It's easy to get ahead of yourself. Okay. So we're going to add our waypoints. We've got our origin and destination entered Abeline to Amarillo. Our first waypoint. Tango, Quebec, Alpha. Duplicates have been found. The one we want is Tuscola VOR, Abeline. There we go. Next waypoint after that we said was Sierra Whiskey. It wants to put the A in there, but that's not correct. Oh, that is not right. Hang on. Remove that waypoint. How do you get it to not autofill? Because that's not what I want. I'll tell you what we can do. Instead of saying Sierra Whiskey, it's an airport, so we can go Kilo Sierra Whiskey. Avenger? That's 35 miles away, so that is correct. Sweetwater. Okay. After Sweetwater is Guthrie. Golf Tango Hotel. Duplicates have been found. Guthrie's the one we want, not Griffin. Okay. Scroll down the page. There we go. And after Guthrie is 3 Foxtrot 6. 3 Foxtrot 6. That's Dan Richards Municipal. I'm going to overfly that one. And after that comes Childress. Charlie Delta Sierra. Oop, didn't pick up the Delta. Delta Sierra. Childress. That will do it. Okay, so we go back. Let's look at procedures. I've scouted in Navigraph ahead of time using, saw the different charts, different approaches that are available. We may be flying VOR, but an RNAV approach can help get you set up on the right runway, the right heading, very easily if you're able to follow it. It kind of hard to see there because of the contrast, but that is the RNAV Zulu with a MERV transition, which comes in right along our route. Our route will spit us out right onto MERV, so it's perfect. If we can plan for that, it would be just like entering the pattern on base, as long as there's no one in the pattern to cause problems with. We should be able to plan for that quite easily. So go to the approach. We're going to select is the RNAV 22. I'll find it. RNAV Zulu for runway 22 with transition MERV. See, swings us right around, just like so. Want to load it, not load and activate. Activate would tell us we're there and we're ready to fly right now, which we are not. So there we go. Let's go back out to our map, zoom in a little bit so we can use that to see our airport. Go ahead and set up our autopilot while we're thinking about it. This is a VFR flight, so we'll be heading in a general westerly direction. So remember, east is odd and west is even odder. So we need to be at an even thousands of altitude plus 500 feet. So 4,500 would not be enough to comply with the altitudes on the RNAV plate. So we're going to bump ourselves up to 6,500. That will be our cruise altitude, 6,500 feet. Let's go ahead. I'm going to get our GPS connecting here. There we go. One thing I did forget was planning on joining the VATSIM, flying on VATSIM. So, was planning on flying on VATSIM. So let me get connected here. Give me just a moment. Connect. I'll do a flight plan. Abeline to, there we go. It's about an hour and a half. Okay, looks pretty good. We're going to estimate cruise speed of 160 knots is what we're shooting for. The cruise altitude of 6,500 feet. And filed. All right. Quick VFR flight plan was filed just for good measure. Technically, I don't think technically you have to file a VFR flight plan, but it is a good idea because at the very least it will, on VATSIM tracking apps like VATSPY and different other maps, it will show your destination at the very least, which is good information for other pilots to have. In addition to the controllers. So looking on VATSIM, there are no controllers currently online in our area. Fort Worth RTEC is offline. The Fort Worth Center is offline, as well as Albuquerque Center, which is where Amarillo is located, in Albuquerque Center. So we don't have any ATC to worry about, which means on VATSIM, if there's no ATC online, you should be monitoring and communicating on Unicom. So we will go ahead and set ourselves up for the VATSIM Unicom channel 122.8 and make that our active. So now we are monitoring and communicating on Unicom. All right, so last thing we need to consider is our transponder. We're going to be flying VFR. Default VFR transponder code is 1200. Already set. Make sure we are broadcasting our altitude before we get going. And yes. All right, Mode C transponder set. Oh, one more thing I wanted to do is go ahead and set up vertical speed. I'm going to plan our climb at about 1,200 feet per minute once we initiate our autopilot. 6,500. Everything is set, I do believe. We are ready for taxi. This enunciator standby. I'm not sure if that's the standby alternator or standby altimeter. Standby alternator. I'm not sure why it's lighting up. If everything is set correctly, everything looks correct. It's done that to me in the past. I'm going to have to look into that and see. It hasn't caused any problems, so as long as it doesn't cause any problems now, we should be good. As I mentioned, these black square aircraft are very wonderfully complex in terms of what they simulate, their failure systems and everything. So, okay, we are ready to actually get started on the flight. Let's go ahead and bring up Navigraph so I can bring up the airport layout. Show where I'm at. Not sure why it says Symlink is not running. I'm going to try closing Navigraph and reopening it and see if maybe it finds it, because it's having problems tracking me. There we go. Now it ceases. Okay, so planning out, looking at the airport diagram, we're going to go ahead and taxi to runway 17 right will be our departure, according to the winds and the weather. So we'll be leaving the FBO and entering taxiing to 17 right via Charlie. So we need to call that out on VATSIM on Unicom. So we are following the rules, letting everyone know of our intentions. I gotta clear my throat. Abeline traffic, November 9185 Tango is taxiing to runway 17 right via Charlie. Okay, so release the parking brake, and here we go. This guy here, see if we can go around him. Ground crew and Microsoft Flight Sim never seem to stand in a logical place. They just stand right in front of your propeller, right in front of your jet engine. Here we go. All right, we are taxiing on our way. One thing I did not do before we started taxiing, which we can do a little bit now if we multitask ever so slightly, is set the heading bug. We are running parallel with the runway heading was 175, which we are running parallel with the runway currently. So let's go ahead and move our heading bug to where we need it to be. and we'll do the same for our course, just for ease of tracking. Oh, I'm getting a little fast, 30 miles, 30 knots. Oh, I got a little hiccup there. There we go. A little bit of graphic hiccups here. Alright, we are here at the end of the runway. So we'll start slowing down so we can make our turn. Alright, here's our hold short line. So we'll go ahead and hold short. Oh, there's our hold short. This is our... Alright. We're going to go ahead and hold short right here. Just a moment. Set our parking brake while we check everything. Do our final checks. We're about to enter the runway, so our strobe lights can go ahead and come on. It's daylight. We don't need our taxi lights or landing lights, so we don't have to worry about those. Engine check real quick. Everything is still in the green. Alright, we've got our heading bug preset. Course line is ready to set correctly. Our FMS navigation is set to GPS, so when we get ready to start using, if we need to use it, it is available, or at least we're going to do our best to use it in an advisory capacity and try to continue VFR as best we can. Altimeter. Altimeter. We forgot to set our altimeter. Alright, so see, this is one of the important things to remember. Check the METAR. Just double check the METAR. Abeline's altimeter is 2963. So we zoom in, set altimeter. Two niner. That's about 6.3. Yeah, that would have made a huge difference. Yeah, look at that. All right. So now everything is set. We'll make our call outs and enter the runway. Well, first of all, let's double check. Since we are on the network, VATSIM, we need to look. Make sure there's no aircraft coming in on final. There is nobody. Make sure there's no aircraft coming the wrong way. Has happened before. Oh, beautiful moon. All right, we're set. Now we can make our call outs. Abeline traffic, November 9185 Tango is taking off runway 17 right for departure to the southwest. Abeline traffic. All right. Now, the Beechcraft Bonanza does not require flaps on takeoff unless conditions unless conditions demand it. Well, this is a beautiful day with wonderful conditions. I do not believe we need flaps on this takeoff, so we will get lined up. Go ahead and brake just one more time. And slowly start accelerating. Push the throttle forward, and we're on the roll. Watch our airspeed. Use rudder to keep her as close to the center line as we can. Airspeed is alive. 60 knots, 70 knots rotate. Positive rate of climb. Gear comes up. Keep as close to runway heading as we can. Something I've been trying to work on. Climbing. Alright, and go ahead and engage the autopilot heading mode. Then it'll keep us on the runway heading as we begin our climb. Real quick, grab a departing screenshot now that we're on autopilot. Maybe two. Alright, back to the cockpit. Go ahead and zoom out our map so we can see where we are in relation to our waypoints. I just received a contact me because center came online when I was trying to take off. Alright, give me a moment. I gotta tune this. Contact me from Dallas Center 135175. Okay. One, 3, 5, 1, 7, 5. Fort Worth Center, November 9185 Tango is passing leaving Abeline, passing 4,000 feet for 6,500 VFR. Okay, we're having issues because it will not pick up the last octet. Disconnect. We're just going to disconnect to avoid conflicts because radio is unable to accept that frequency that the ATC gave us. I need to probably mention that to someone and see if I can figure out why. Now that got us all sorts of out of sorts on our flight. Okay, so we need to go ahead and start turning. All right, we are no longer on VATSIM because we had communication problems that could not be easily resolved. All right, now we got all that sorted out, unfortunately. Yep, that was what I ended up having to do. Unfortunately, had some issues. Were not able to resolve them. Recognized I was about to start causing problems on VATSIM, and so I made the decision to go ahead and disconnect from the network and continue my flight offline, just to avoid ruining anyone else's day. And I really, really do hate that, because I wish I could have figured out what was going on, but I was already in the air. I was, already creating a problem, so I felt like the best solution at the time was to go ahead and disconnect and solve the problem before reconnecting later. So I'm going to have to look into why I was not able to use the new 3-digit decimals on the back of the frequency, because I tried it several times and it did not go in. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But back to the flight at hand. Frees us up to concentrate. We are at cruise. We need to go ahead and set ourselves up for a cruise profile. So let's back our manifold pressure up to 25. RPMs, back those down to 25. And then lean our engine rich peak. Start leaning, move the mixture back until that center column starts flashing. That's leanest, so we wait. And now just push it back forward a little bit, looking for the sweet spot where horsepower at the top reaches its peak, which it did about 212. So we'll back it up about 212, 213-ish. That's all over the board right now. What's going on there? Okay, we're going to follow this road here to our left, below us to the left. Follow that along until we are well clear of the Charlie. Cruising along 6,500 feet. Everything looks nice. There's a wind farm below us. Yeah, wind farm down below us on the left. Alright, we are getting clear of the Charlie now. We can go ahead and turn back a little bit towards our actual waypoint. Turn back on a course that takes us more in line with Sweetwater. Insight as a reference. Okay. Okay, check our instruments real quick, just to be sure we're following everything we need to be following. We are at 25 inches manifold pressure, roughly 2,500 RPMs. Fuel flow is around 15 gallons per hour. That's pretty good. Our engine temps are correct. They're in the green. Oil temperature's in the green. Oil pressure's in the green. Everything looks to be good. We're getting a bit of fluctuating horsepower, but roughly in the 213, 214 range, 200 to 250. Our air temperature, cabin temperature is about 76 degrees Fahrenheit, nice and comfortable. Still bugs me that we weren't able to respond to that contact me. I need to figure out. I wonder if I could have entered the radio frequency in VPilot and forced it, enforced it that way. I don't know. I've never tried to do that. Yeah, it's going to bug me. I guess I should go ahead and update my my description, because we're not on VATSIM anymore. Stream info. We are well and clear. There we go. I shared a little bit of wisdom in our crew chat channel on our Discord. Let my mistakes be a lesson for everyone. Loaded up at Abeline, started preparing for my flight, connected to VATSIM, no controllers online. Made all my calls on Unicom, taxied out, and took off. I get a contact me from Fort Worth Center. He had come online as I was taxiing out. Always double check before taking off. That is my bad. Okay, so here we are. We're passing Sweetwater. I'll go ahead and turn. Heading. Turn ourselves. Looks like it's going to be about, what is that, 6 degrees, 5 degrees? 1 degree. My goodness. Almost exactly 360. That's parallel course. We'll go ahead and kick over a few more degrees, see if we can get closer to that true track. Okay, we'll go ahead and adjust our course line. Keep ourselves close by. Here we go. Can help some people out in Discord. Am I asking for a route for a future update? I got them set up. All right, we are pretty well right on course again, according to our instrument, which I shouldn't be chasing the magenta line. That's not what I'm supposed to do in a VFR flight. And but using it as a reference. Notice all these farm roads seem to be lined up north to south almost perfectly. Perfect little grid system. Let's go ahead and reset ourselves. Yeah, this is always the longest part of the flight. The part where there's not a lot going on. Go ahead and do an engine check. 25 inches manifold pressure, 2,500 RPM, fuel flow steady, mostly steady, about 15 gallons per hour. Engine temperature's in the green. Oil temperature's actually a little bit high. You know what? I just remembered. We still have our cowl flaps open. I'm not sure if we're supposed to be doing that. Cowl flaps, go ahead and close those. Oil pressure is in the green. Okay, that was just, it looks like oil temperature is in the green. It's just I couldn't see all of the green. It's less concerning now. Okay, that's good. Oil temperature's in the green. Oil pressure's in the green. Everything is good. Just keep ourselves looking around. Ah, I clicked on the wrong button. I am so sorry. Please excuse the technical difficulties. Likewise. Don't need to worry about that. Here we go. Check out a couple of the screenshots we took earlier. That looks pretty good. Here's the one of the wind farm. Here's the one of the wind farm we took earlier. Also looks pretty good. I still haven't figured out why the standby alternator enunciator is lighting up. I need to look into that, and I need to look into why my radio can't handle three-digit decimals. Let's see if COM2 could have handled it. Yep, COM2 would have worked. So it's something to do with the GTN 750, and I strongly suspect it could end up being because I'm using the freeware version. It's more and more. Let's check this. There it is. COM1 channel spacing. Okay, my apologies. I didn't mean to speak bad about the freeware version of this. It works out pretty well. Although I am strongly considering upgrading to the payware version from the same company, because I haven't really liked the freeware version. There's a few little things that I wish it could do that I've learned work in the payware version, like following airways. Like I mentioned earlier in my flight planning stage, we're going to be following, I forget which airway it is because it's not actually part of my flight plan. Let's look ahead here. We're going to be following along the Victor 114. Yeah, there it is. Following along the Victor 114, but we won't actually be on the Victor 114 because this PMS 50 freeware, like the free version of the PMS 50 GTN 750, it cannot cannot actually join airways, but you can pick your starting waypoint, you can pick your exit waypoint, and you can follow it manually, which is what I've done on this flight. We'll go ahead, line ourselves up with the fields here, follow the roads. Drifted across unnecessarily, just lengthening our trip. Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, but because I'm intentionally not using the autopilot's nav mode, I'm using heading mode. We're getting a little bit of drift as we go back and forth across the course line. Speaking of course, we're about 15 minutes away from Guthrie. At Guthrie, we're going to make a slight turn to a heading of 5 degrees, on a course of 5 degrees. So I may as well go ahead and adjust that course line so I don't have to worry about it later. Pretty steep bank there. We should check our fuel conditions. Alright, check our fuel tanks. Aha! Yes, our left tank is starting to hit the yellow zone. So we will go ahead and switch to our right tank to keep fuel balanced. switch to our right tank, and once it gets to the top of the yellow, we might actually, for safety's sake, go ahead and kick on our reserves. Kick on our reserves, our tip tanks. That'll feed the fuel from the tip tanks into the main tanks and keep us going that much further. We've got plenty of fuel. We just don't want to get ourselves in a bind. Do an engine check real quick. Ever so often is a good idea. 25 inches manifold pressure, 2,500 RPM, fuel flow fairly stable at 15 gallons per hour. Engine temperatures are in the green. Oil temperatures in the green. Oil pressure is in the green. We're good. Horsepower is pretty stable at 215. Airspeed, right around 160, a little below 155. Ground speed's 184 knots. We're doing pretty good. We're coming up on Guthrie in the next couple of minutes. Let's check out how we did on our engine handling. Yeah, we're down to 92%. Good old wear and tear. Active failures. There are no active failures. Let's keep it in standby. It's a beautiful, clear day. No reason to run it if we don't need it. Let's go ahead and refresh our METARs. Let's check our METARs one more time. We don't need our Abeline METAR anymore, but let's check our weather at Amarillo, see if it's changed. Get ahead of it. VFR, no warnings. 190 for 9 knots, 10 mile visibility. Altimeter is going to be 29 or 42, but we'll check it one more time before we get there. We're still about 40 minutes out, give or take. But it looks like runway 22 is still favorable. Yes, it does look like runway 22 is still a favorable runway. 13 has a steeper crosswind, so 22 is going to be our bet. So we are on track, well established for what we want to attempt. Looking good so far. Alright, we have crossed Guthrie and we're on our way to 3 Foxtrot 6, which is Richards Municipal. If you notice, our course is already more or less correct. Once we cross Dan Richards, we're going to be, or heading rather, is more or less correct already, because we'll be on a course of 354, which is about where we're currently at, 354, 356. So we're already lined up for our next leg, and we're just don't have to make any adjustments. We're lined up very well. We should overfly Dan Richards and be on track to continue on to Childress. In fact, we'll go ahead and line up our course line. There's 360. Yeah, right in there. A minor adjustment once we get where we're going. Once we cross Dan. Let's take a peek outside. Get our chase camera going. I do believe that's going to be Dan Richards down there. These are very simple. Yep, that is Dan Richards Municipal. It's a very simple airport, and we are flying parallel to it, well above the pattern, so we are good. Off to our left, get a screenshot. That wasn't what I meant to do. There we go. Alright, now that we're crossing, we'll go ahead and make a slight adjustment to our heading to get us back on course. Childress. Oh, I just remembered you guys are still looking at the METAR. Here we go. That was silly of me. I'm sorry. I forgot what screen I had you on. Check our fuel situation. So far so good. Fuel seems to be pretty good. And that right tank hasn't quite fallen below the point we want to use our tip tanks. It is still correcting the imbalance. Alright, we are coming up on Childress. We can go ahead and start making our turn onto our next course, which I should have laid out the next course properly. There we are. Our next waypoint is Merv. We're still a good ways away from that. Tell you what we want to do though. Once we get a bit closer, we want to go ahead and enable the nav mode on our autopilot. I know I'm trying to get away from that, but that will enable us to use the RNAV approach and get set up on the runway. Like I said, I like using the GPS as a supplement to the VFR. I look around, I follow my waypoints. As you can see, Childress down there below us. You know, I visually verify my waypoints and use the magenta line for me to be sure I don't drift too far off of my intended course, add too much mileage to my trip, especially when I'm flying jobs for charters and on air. So we'll get a little closer to our line. Since our next waypoint is going to be the start of our approach, it would not hurt to go ahead and set our course line to our runway heading, our final runway heading. So let me go ahead and navigraph and bring up the approach plate. Zoom this in just a little bit. The final runway heading, final approach heading is going to be 218. So I will go ahead and set our course line on our HSI. There's 21, there's 22, and just go back a click or two. That'll end up being our final approach heading, which we will turn on to during the RNAV approach. So far so good. Let's look at our airport diagram as well, where we're heading. We'll be coming in on runway 22, which means when we get ready, we're going to exit to the left and to taxi to the FBO. If we can get stopped by Papa 3, we'll be right there at it. If we miss it, we'll go down to Papa 2 and taxi back on taxiway Papa and Juliet to reach the FBO. So, Papa and Juliet to enter the FBO at the terminal. So, got our game plan, know what we're planning on doing, see if we can execute it. Still got some time, 22 minutes until we reach the first transition point for our approach at Merv. So, still got a little bit of time. Almost forgot. When we reach Merv, we want to be at 5,200 feet, which means a little bit before there we need to leave ourselves enough time to descend. We need to drop 1,300 feet. So we'll give ourselves plenty of time once we get within about 3 minutes or so of our waypoint expected. Fly Live overlay may be having a little bit of trouble keeping up. It says we're only about 46% of the way through our flight, but we're 23 minutes from our destination, according to our our GPS here. Also, it shows our ground speed at 146 knots, but our GTN 750 shows a ground speed of 185 knots. So I think my overlay may be having problems keeping up. So it shows fluctuating vertical speed. We do want to go ahead and check our weather, though. So, refresh the METAR one more time. Yeah, the wind shifted again at Amarillo, 220 at 14 knots. Altimeter's pretty strong at 29.42. We'll go ahead and set that altimeter since we're coming up on 29.42. There's 29.42. Very good. Showing we're climbing ever so slightly to adjust that altitude and get back at 6,500. Autopilot's taking care of us. I bumped the control handle. That was RPMs. Move our RPMs back up to 2,500. There we go. adjust our heading ever so slightly to get us closer to course for MERV. Since we are flying offline and I still have 14 minutes, I will be running back. Back 12 minutes till we reach MERV. Look at some of the scenery going by down here. It's actually kind of nice. Little ridge. Since we're going to need to be on the RNAV approach for what we have planned, I'm going to go ahead and switch from heading mode to nav mode. And notice the airplane is going to go ahead and get itself on the course line. We will let it correct. Be sure to set ourselves up for a nice screenshot when we get ready. Alright, 10 minutes and 30 seconds roughly until we reach MERV, which is the transition point and the first waypoint on the RNAV Zulu approach for runway 22 at Amarillo. Our autopilot is getting us back on the proper course. We've flown VFR using the heading bug most of the way here, and just roughly followed the course. But now that we're trying to set ourselves up for the RNAV approach, we need to follow the course more precisely, which is where the autopilot comes in very handy. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the heading bug to where the heading bug is sitting on our current course that the autopilot has us set on. So in case anything goes crazy, we can fly it ourselves using heading select mode. We've got our course, our final approach course 218 set on the HSI. And now we're just waiting to get ourselves set up on our approach. Do another engine check as we were getting ready to move into this part of the flight. 25 inches manifold pressure, 2,500 RPMs. Fuel flow stable at 15 gallons per hour. Gas, engine gas temperature, engine temperature is in the green. Oil temperature is in the green. Oil pressure is in the green. Getting about 212 horsepower because we're still lean to rich at peak. So everything's good. It's full daylight, so we don't need our landing lights. Good on our lights. Here in just a minute, we're going to set ourselves up. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the approach plate in Navigraph. So here we go. Our first waypoint is MERV, and at MERV we need to cross MERV at 5,200 feet. So we're going to go ahead and set that up in the autopilot to be ready, but not start descending until we get a little closer. So set our altitude in the autopilot to 5,200 feet, and we'll be ready for vertical speed select to start the descent. Probably do that when we have about 3 or 4 minutes left to that waypoint. Give ourselves plenty of time to descend without having to fall out of the sky like a rock. Checking everything. Let's check our fuel states. Here we go. This is what I was waiting for and kind of hoping for, to be honest. Our fuel is currently, there we go. Current fuel, both of them are at the top of the yellow. So they're even tanks and they're starting to get a little bit low. So this is one of the things about the Black Square aircraft I haven't been able to try yet. I'm really excited to try it. And that is its tip tanks. If you notice, it's got tip tanks on either way. This is the point we would want to use them. So over here is our tip tank transfer pumps. See, we have an extra 10 gallons of fuel in each tip tank. So to do this, as I understand, you just manually switch on the transfer pumps. And the pumps should transfer fuel from the tip tanks into our main tanks. They show to be on. Not sure how long it takes. Yes, if you notice, you see the needles moving slowly. So the transfer is taking place. We are going to go ahead, just for good measure, and select the left tank again, because it was time to switch tanks anyway. We'll come back, give that a minute, and we'll keep an eye on it. Because I've actually never used the tip tanks before, which will be interesting. Aha! While we were dealing with the fuel situation, we've got about 4 minutes and 20 seconds until we reach MERV. So we need to start thinking about descending. Go ahead. Select our vertical speed mode. Start with a gentle 500 foot per minute descent. Let's pull our throttle back so we don't pick up airspeed. Try to keep us about 160 knots is what we're trying to cruise at. You can see that's going to be too slow. We've still got to come down. Is it going to be too slow? No, I think it'll be just fine. Cross MERV at 5,200. Once we cross MERV, we should, our next waypoint, Preve. Okay. Go ahead and increase our rate of descent. About 800 feet per minute, just so we make sure we're down there when we're supposed to be. Yep, 800 feet per minute descent. And cut the throttle back just a little bit more. Get it down to around 20 so we don't pick up speed. We're starting to pick up airspeed. We were creeping above 160 or about 165. Pull it back to 20 inches of manifold pressure, keeping the RPMs at 2,500. Should be good. We're not picking up airspeed anymore. We're staying pretty solid about 165-ish. Between 160 and 165. That works pretty well. Coming up to capture. We're going to go ahead and zoom in. We're not worried about the full route anymore. We're about to start our approach. Okay, a minute and 20 seconds until we cross MERV. Once we cross MERV, we want to go ahead and descend to 5,100 feet. Very, very small decline, but that'll get us in a better position. Actually, no, we'll leave it at 5,200. Then once we cross Preve, we'll need to descend to 4,600 so we can intercept the glide at slider. Okay, there we are. We are on. All right. 3 minutes and 20 seconds till Preve. Airspeed's dropped about 140, which is just fine because we want it to be below 150 when we lower our gear and our first notch of flaps, which we'll do once we cross pre, we'll go ahead and do that. See, this is about the point we would want to start making our radio calls if we were on VATSIM. You know, at this point, we're about roughly 15 miles east, and we're coming in for runway 22, so we would say something like Amarillo traffic, November 9185 Tango, 15 miles east, inbound for full stop landing on runway 22, Amarillo traffic. Minute and 45 seconds to Preve. Once we cross Preve, we're actually going to be on about a six and a half mile six and a half miles from the runway. So once we are established at slider and we start, then we'll be on a 2 mile final once we capture the glide slope. So that will be our next call. Notice our radar in the bottom left of the screen currently. Our radar altitude has come alive. It means we're, what is it, about 1,700, give or take? 1,700 feet above the ground. So we are getting in close. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get ahead of it. We're going to set our radar, or set our autopilot altitude to 4,600 and be ready to start our descent once we cross Preve. 30 seconds to Preve. Once we start our turn, I will start the descent. We'll get our gear down. We'll go from there. In fact, let's go ahead and lower landing gear. So we're below 150 knots. Starting our turn, so we'll start our descent. 4, 5, 7, 8, about 800 foot per minute descent, and we'll lower that first notch of flaps to help us slow down. Keep an eye on airspeed. I'm thinking it should settle around 120 knots, which is perfectly fine at the moment. We are going to go ahead and arm the approach. Zoom ourselves in. All right, we're still following. Whoops, not what I meant. Cancel. Back to map. Zoom in. Here we go. Alright, approach is armed. Glide slope is armed. We're still holding at 4,600 feet. We're ready to intercept the glide once we reach slider. And we are on our way. Well on our way. Alright, we need to add power back because we've dropped to about 100 knots, which is our final approach speed, but we're not quite ready for that yet. So I'll add a little bit of power to keep our airspeed up and to give us more power to work with once we're on final. And there's the runway. So we are right where we need to be. Okay. Now we are turning onto our final approach course. Now we can drop our second notch of flaps We're going to lose airspeed, so we're going to add power as we drop the second notch of flaps. We haven't captured the glide yet, but we should any moment. For approach speed of around 100 knots. Okay, we're going to autopilot off. We're going to go to do a visual approach because the glide did not capture. So we're switching from RNAV to visual approach. RNAV got us set up. We can hand fly it the rest of the way down. So here we go. Keeping the airspeed about 100 knots. Using my trim to get me on the proper glide. We might be a little high, but I think we can make this work. Power. Yeah, we're a bit high. There we go. That looks a lot better. Keep flying up on the center line. Focusing on the touchdown zone. Keep everything lined up. Alright. Throttle back to idle and keep the nose up. Nose up. As long as it will, let it kiss the runway if possible.
Landing time clock.
And there we go. Alright, we start looking for an exit to the left. There's the intersection up there. Ground speed's below 30 knots. Put in a little power for taxi, get the RPM back up to 1,000 like we know on taxi out. Alright, 26 knots. We are taxiing now. Alright, we're going to exit to the left. And we should be, I think we've reached Papa 2. Papa 3. Alright, get clear. There's our brakes. Temporarily set our parking brake and clean up the aircraft. Let's get the flaps up. Strobe light comes off. Taxi light would come on if it was dark enough, but it is broad daylight. We don't need the taxi light. We're okay. Right. So, good now. We're at Papa 3. Let's go ahead and switch to the airport layout and get our taxi plan. Perfect. We made it. We stopped in time at Papa 3. We just go straight across and we're at the FBO. Easiest parking job I've had in quite a while. So, let's go ahead, release the parking brake and start taxiing. Then we'd make our call outs at this point. Amarillo traffic, November 9185 Tango, clear of runway 22, taxiing to the FBO via Papa 3. Simple as that. Really easy. And we should have made a final call, but we're not on the network. It'll be alright this time, but we would have made a final call once we reach Slider. 2-mile final for runway 22, but we're good. Just keep the speed down a little bit. Don't want to speed on our taxi here. We're here. We'll find ourselves we'll call ourselves a parking spot right over here. Slow down. That looks good. That'll work. Set our parking brake. Everything is good. Our nav lights can stay on while we shut down. The strobe lights are already off. All our lights are off except beacon and nav. And pull mixture back to cut off.
Engine off time logged.
There
The
we are.
flight is finished. It has been monitored by On Air.
And there's our notification. We got, alright, our job completed and on here. We got paid. At this point, let's go the rest of the way. Let's just go ahead and shut it down for the rest of the way. Nav light can come off. Beacon light can come off. Magneto's off. Prop, throttle, all the levers back. Avionics off. Alternators off. And the battery comes off. So there we are. That is another successful flight. Let's get a screenshot just to show that we made it. Welcome to Amarillo. And now we will go ahead and figure out our paperwork in On Air. Let's have a look. According to On Air, our landing rate was a negative 176 feet per minute, which it classifies as very smooth. I was landing speed 61 knots. That might have been a little slow, but it's green. It didn't complain at us too much. 1.01 G's on the landing, pretty good. All set. Let's check. Got the comfort bonus, we got the safety bonus, and we got the aircraft handling bonus. So we did everything as close to by the book as On Air wants us to. Lights, safety, everything, all handling of the aircraft. We didn't overspeed. We didn't do anything crazy with the aircraft, so we did a good job. So next, let's record as much of this mission log as we can. Fill out the rest of it, like we started at the beginning of the flight. So now we can fill in some more of this information. Distance, okay, the direct distance On Air estimated was 196 nautical miles. What did we actually fly? 267 nautical miles, because we had to stay clear. But Charlie at Abeline, we had to plan our VRs. We didn't want to fly direct straight across, so that added some distance to the trip. 267 nautical miles. Engine on time. Engine on was 2:36 p.m. Zulu time. I wish it would format things in 24-hour format. It's 14:36 engines on. Airborne at 14:54. We landed, touchdown at 16:28, and engine off at 16:32. Alright, starting fuel. We'll get that from a different screen. It's easier to read there. Taxi speed was not exceeded. That is good. Engine run time is our block time of 115 minutes. Our flight time was 94 minutes. So that's all the information we can easily get from this screen. Though, if you notice, we got 117 XP, including a 20% bonus, and 9 mission XP. So everything looks good there. I'll click OK. Go into our income, check our payouts. Passenger services, we just received $3,020.03. Oop, I don't know what happened there. There we go. So mission payouts, $3,020.03. For passenger services, remember we carried 95 pounds of cargo with us. Not much, but every little dollar counts. $503.33. Giving us a... Oh, that was our cut. I'm sorry, that's the pilot cut. So that's not mission payout, that's pilot's cut. There we go. Pilot's cut was $3,523.26. Easy to calculate, pretty straightforward. Now for the rest of this, rest of the fees and stuff, we have to look at the VA's page. It takes a second to load, but once it gets loaded up, let's go ahead and drop Navigraph off there. We don't need... Wrong button. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we don't need Navigraph anymore. Alright, so check the income. Okay, so for mission payouts, we look at passenger services for the most recent flight, since we're the one that just landed. $9,869.89, and this is mission payout, so $9,869.89, and then that cargo paid out $4,223.60 for a total mission payout. Uh-oh, that should have been dollars. Hang on a moment. Format. We want it to be currency. And we want it to be centered. I'm not sure why I cleared like that. There we go. So $14,093.49 was that mission payout. We can figure our fuel costs now because... Oh yes, there is one more thing we need to do from my page. We need to go to the aircraft itself and see how much gas is left in the tank. So we go to the aircraft, and here we are. There's 45.66 gallons left, which means we burned a total of 24.17 gallons during the flight, which, using the fuel price of $4.45 per gallon that we estimated before, that gives us a total fuel cost for this flight of, that is not correct, one moment. Delete that. There we go. $107.56. Alright, we have to figure out rental costs now, which we will more easy to do from here. On the expenses side, go into aircraft renting, and we're looking for, there it is. The most recent line is November 9185 Tango Bonanza A36TC rental fee for 1.575 hours of flight. It's $1,511.60. So $1,511.60. And last but not least, actually last and probably least, to be honest, as far as expenses go, we need to check landing and parking fees. So go under our expenses, landing and there we go, landing and parking. Scroll to the bottom. We're looking for, here's the landing fee for landing at Amarillo, $8.46. Not terribly expensive to land. But where they get you is the parking fee. So let's back up a couple of lines. 91.85 Tango. Parking fee from Abeline, $62.11. That's still not a terribly large amount of money. But $62.11, it's important to account for everything. By far our smallest expense, landing and parking. But let's do a quick once over, make sure all this information is correct. Origin was Abeline, KABI. Destination was Amarillo, KAMA. Direct distance, according to On Air, was 196 nautical miles. The actual distance flown was 267 nautical miles. Passenger configuration for the flight was 003. Cargo, 95 pounds. Started with 418.98 pounds of fuel for a gross weight of 3,363 pounds. Engine, let's see, starting our fuel price was $4.45 a gallon. Started with 69.83 gallons, ended with 45.66 gallons for a total burn of 24.17, giving a total fuel cost of the flight of $107.56. Cruise profile, we forgot to do that one. We stayed in 25 rich cruise configuration the entire way. Weather observations, skies were clear, full VFR the whole way. Engine runtime 115 minutes, flight time was 94 minutes, mission payout $14,093.49. Expenses, pilot's cuts $3,523.36, fuel cost of $107.56, rental cost of $1,511.60, landing and parking fees of $70.57, bringing total expenses to $5,213.09, giving a final profit to the VA of $8,880.40, giving a profit margin on this job of 58.7%. That, I believe, was a very good job for a Beechcraft Bonanza. So, while small GA aircraft like the Beechcraft Bonanza or the Cessna 172, the Diamond DA-40, small aircraft like that, they may not be able to carry a lot of people or a lot of cargo, but their jobs have a high profit margin because they sip gas compared to some of the other aircraft, and they have much lower rental fees. So they are good places to start to learn how to choose good missions, profitable missions in On Air. You don't have to track every detail of every flight like I do, but I like doing this because I can use it as a teaching method to show people how to choose profitable jobs. So hopefully everybody learned something from the experience, and I hope that this is a benefit to charters pilots as they new charters pilots as they get started. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next flight.